Hey guys, welcome back to the Mind Body broadcast with Austin and Marty. And this week we're going to do something entirely different. I know I say that every week, but
I
this
love it.
this is going to be completely different. I don't even know if I've seen any podcasts do this, but maybe we might be innovators. I don't know. Um, we are going to interview each other, so you guys will get to know the hosts. Um, some of you know us, some of you don't, but we're going to probably tell you some things that you didn't know today,
Hmm.
hopefully. Maybe more than you bargained for. I don't know. Marty has
Yeah.
Marty has some skeletons in his closet, so they might come out.
Oh
Who knows?
man, there's too many. That's why I got three different closets, right? So here we go.
Yeah, he has the closet specifically for skeletons. Uh,
Yeah,
um,
storage unit's going to be full here soon too. So we'll see what comes out on this podcast.
Hopefully, no one thinks any differently of us, if or at least think better of us when we're done.
Yeah, you got it.
uh, okay, so we have a handful of questions for you guys. We're just going to go back and forth and get to hear the responses from each of us. So I can kick it off if
Yeah,
you're
man.
ready.
I am.
Okay, first question. How and why did you start coaching?
Yeah, absolutely love this question because it was a little bit inadvertent in a sense of coaching was kind of a natural transition away from personal training, and I've kind of shared my thoughts and opinions on the definition the definition differences between trainer and coach. Is I believe that a trainer does things for people, and I believe a coach does things with people. And so I started out very interestingly, we'll say, in a sense of I came out to Alberta, Canada, to a little town called Red Deer. Well, it's got 100,000 people when I was 21, 22 in 2007, and was just fresh off of my third year of university. I took chemistry as my major and psychology as a minor. I didn't have enough money to go back for my fourth year, being a poor gentleman from Nova Scotia. And so came out here to make big oil money. Like Alberta is kind of, if people don't know, a miniature version of Texas in a sense of there's lots of oil here, there's lots of jobs availability, especially at that time around 2005, 2006. But in 2007, if anyone knows that as well, that was the crash out here. Is that everyone was laid off. The oil field really took a big tank. People weren't offering these 20, 30, 40, $50 an hour jobs with no education. And so I kind of came out here and that was not available. I came out here in May and kind of was like, well, damn, what do I kind of do? And I got a job offer at a supplement store. I kind of wandered into a local supplement stop here. It was called Better Bodies Nutrition and Tanning at the time. And was just wandering around, and the owner, who was there one time a month from Edmonton, which is a town about an hour and 30 minutes north, about, I would say, 100 miles or so north of Red Deer where I was. And he was just in there at that one time. Of course, I wandered in at the right time, and he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm looking for a job." And he said, well, he kind of laughed because I was a skinny kid from Nova Scotia at the time because I had no money and was just fresh off of university. And he said, "Okay, what do you know about these supplements?" And he picked random supplements off the shelf, kind of told him about it. He said, "Okay, you can have 5 hours a week." So I was like, okay, great. At that time, I was doing snow removal, and it didn't snow, so I was literally being paid $1,000 a month retainer for October, November, December, and January. And this would have been the end of January, so I was making $1,000 a month, like, and basically living with my two friends, Jack and Josh, and they were kind of supporting me in a sense. I had this big, gross beard, and I was really down on things, blah blah blah. So he gave me that job, and then one of the girls ended up retiring or quitting or changing her job then. So I ended up being the 9 to 5 guy, Monday to Friday. I left my job as the snow removal guy, and then one of the guys that I worked with at the gym, or sorry, not at the gym, at the supplement shop, named Big Rob. Hi, Big Rob. He said, "Hey, I'm going to be buying this place. Do you want to be my manager?" And I said, "You know what? Let's do it." So he ended up buying it that May, which would have been 3 or 4 months after I was working there full time. And so we kind of ran the show. We called it the Rob and Marty Show, which was great. I loved talking about supplements. It was a big interest of mine. Chemistry background, learning about things. This is when creatine monohydrate was being challenged by creatine ethyl ester, and all these other new supplements were coming out. Pre-workout was still relatively new. No Explode and Super Pump, if anyone remembers those bad boys, were still fresh on the scene. They still had carbs in the pre-workouts. They were the big scoops and everything, blah, blah, blah. And so went from there, and then Big Rob knew the gentleman that owned a gym, and he said, "Hey, I just had to let go my 2 or 3 personal trainers for whatever reason. I need people. Do you want to do this?" And I said, "Oh my God, I love the gym. I was super nerdy, super interested in it since 15. I was now 21, 22, and I was like, I don't know if I want to get a job as a trainer because I knew guys that loved cars that became mechanics that now they hated cars." And I didn't want that to happen to myself. I didn't want to become a personal trainer and then end up hating the gym or hating to work out because I was there. But income was down. I wasn't doing that well financially. And I said, you know what, screw it. So I did. I went up there. There was me and one other guy was a personal trainer. And he kind of ended up leaving or whatever, not doing so much. So I was the only personal trainer at this only gym in the north end of town here, and I just got super busy. I ended up enjoying it. I put all of the books and practices that I had learned into motion, and it just got super busy. I topped out at 77 hours a week personal training, which if anyone knows what I know, right? If anyone knows what a busy personal trainer would be, about 25 to 30 hours of actual training, not hanging out at the gym, but actual training. So I worked every friggin' day from about 8 to 8, barely squeaking in a couple hours for myself to train. About every day except for Saturday. Worked Sundays. Sunday was my busiest day. All my non-alcoholics were in there from kind of 10 to 6. And then was slowly starting to get burnt out on it, obviously. So that was about 2008. February 2008 was when I started being as a personal trainer. And then about 2011, 2012, I switched gyms. A couple of my friends, Evan and Kathy, bought a gym and said, "Hey, we'd really like for you to come and bring your clients over to this gym." And I said, "Okay." The other gym was not going the direction I wanted to. They had changed hands, everything else. And so then I started seeing more of the competitors are popping up. Bikini was brand new on the scene. Bikini competitions were just starting to roll in, as opposed to just having to be figure and bodybuilding for ladies. Funny tidbit, this is back when they had the three round figure where they had like the sparkly bikini, the black bikini, and then the one piece bikini, which, remember when it used to cover the abs? Remember those figure suits? Yeah, they were still doing that. So they introduced bikini, and I saw all these girls that were kind of floating around, and I heard all these unhealthy, I want to say unsanitary, but just not great processes about not only crazy water depletion, but crazy drug protocols and all these things. And I was like, damn, there's got to be a better way to do this. You don't need to do this to get in shape. And everything that I was reading at the time, all the scientific research, all the training research. And so I had a couple people that, funny enough, came into that gym looking for one of the other trainers there. And they said, "Oh, well, can you do this?" And I said, "Holy crap, okay." And so I had a meeting with them. Had my first show, I had 4 athletes in. One of the guys that was working at Men's Physique was also brand new. One of the guys that was working at the gym said, "Hey, do you want to put me on stage?" He was very genetically gifted. And then one of the girls that was working at the front desk, I kind of made a deal with her. I said, "Hey, listen, I will put you in this show for free if you do the show," because I thought she had a lot of potential. And she said, "Sure thing." So I ended up having four people in that show, and ended up doing the show myself underneath Skip Hill. He was my first coach. Thank you, Ken Skip Hill. You were incredible. My first coach I ever had to go on stage. Couldn't thank you enough. And then just ended up loving it. Loving the coaching process, loving people to answer questions. It fulfilled me a heck of a lot more than just being a personal trainer, doing the nutrition side of stuff, doing the training aspect of stuff, and then learning about peak weeks and how to do it even more better. I know that's not a right term, more better. And yeah, just fell in love with it. And so that's what got me into it, was just not only seeing the practices that I didn't think were correct, but wanting to help educate and share what I learned, man. Yeah. Woo! Woo! Straight fire from Marty's mouth already. First topic, man. Holy crow.
Yeah, I should have went first. Now I have to try to.
So yeah, man. So that's kind of my spiel, and so I'm still sticking around, still doing it. So right back at you. How and why did you start coaching?
Oh, right. My transition was much like yours, personal training, and then it transitioned to online. I think we both started kind of in a similar time when coaching. There wasn't a lot of full-time online coaches, people that were literally that worked from home and had, in their office or whatever, and did this full time. There was a few, just not a lot. So it was kind of one of those things where I wasn't entirely sure that it would be honestly, it wasn't really on my radar. I was going to school for a nutrition degree at the time. I had started the whole lifestyle and stuff in high school for sports, just like a lot of people, and got bit by the bug, if you will, and just wanted to learn, and kept learning. And I found that I had a knack for absorbing the information and stuff. So at the time, I thought, personal training was the way that I was going to be able to give back. And that's how a lot of people start. So I was personal training and worked my way up to the manager of the program at the gym. There were several trainers, and that was while I was in school full time. I eventually transitioned to online schooling because my workload was a lot. So yeah, that's where I started. And then of course people started asking for nutrition advice, as a lot do. And I was going to school for, actually physical therapy at the time. And that was my original. Yeah. So originally that was going to be my career. I knew that was probably a safe bet. I was debating between nursing or physical therapy. And well, the schools that I was looking at, they had a ridiculous wait list to get into the programs. I didn't really want to have to stay active and take worthless courses for, 2 years while I waited to be accepted into these programs. So I thought, man, I really like nutrition. I think I'm going to transition to the nutrition program, because at the time I was starting to get those people asking for, for advice and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm really qualified. I'm qualified, but I'm not. I feel like I need more. So I went ahead and made that transition. I had no freaking clue what my outcome would be in terms of what was I going to do with this degree, if anything. So I did end up finishing it. I ended up finishing with a bachelor's in nutrition science. And to be honest, by the time I finished, I had already moved out of the gym. I wasn't personal training anymore. I was already full-time with coaching. I really just finished because I was almost done. Oh,
yeah.
It was one of those things where, I want to make sure, I have this piece of paper. But like I said, by the time I graduated, I was already close to full-time. I was doing a very small amount of personal training, maybe 10 hours a week, 5 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And everything else was online. So I want to say probably right around the time I graduated, I was offered a subcontract, I guess you'd call it subcontracting position. I was an independent still, but there was a group of several of us that were coaching online. And if you remember, it's a Canadian company, the Strength guys. Remember that?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
So that was where I first started full time. It was myself and a few other people, and we were coaching people full time. Inquiries would come in, we would filter them out to the coaches. We had a little like 3DMJ thing going on type of team. You know what I mean? So
awesome. Yep.
And then I moved away from that to a different similar situation. And then within 2 years, I was just I'm like, I really don't want to give any of my money back to someone else when I'm getting all these inquiries myself. I don't need people filtering me clients. So I branched out on my own. So I was coaching full time through those companies, and then coaching full time for myself, within about a year or two after that. And that's where I've ever been ever since. And there wasn't really a point in there where I would say this, there's a lot of points in there where I questioned it. I was like, I don't really know if this is going to work type of thing. But we actually have another question about that later, so I can go into that a little bit more. But yeah, that's where I ended up. And now it's more than I could ever imagine. We'll just say that. It was one of those things where I just kept working hard at it, and I refused to give up. And there was a lot of times, 100%, if I'm being honest, there's a lot of times where I was like really broke and really scared. And I knew that I felt like I'm an intelligent enough guy that I could always jump into something else if I needed to. And there were a lot of times where I was like about to fill out job resumes.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't, and I just kept going with it. So, it's and you know how it is now. It's so much different. Like because we didn't have as much social media leverage, and we didn't have podcasting. We didn't have all those things that can help promote us. Now, like you can become successful in a lot less time.
Oh yes.
And so it was definitely different, but that's my start, more or less. Man,
I'm super happy you kept with it because, I think you're not only a phenomenal coach, but you offer a lot out there to not only up-and-coming coaches, because you were talking about helping mentor some other new coaches there, like you said, that they can do it in a quicker time, but if they don't have the skill set or the experience that you have and I have, because we've been doing it for so long, we'll say before Instagram. Like, let me say that. Did you start online coaching before Instagram was even existing?
Yes.
Exactly.
I didn't mention that. I don't think we had Facebook. We use Facebook some. I wasn't really promoting on Facebook until I started with my online clients, but
right.
Forums, that's pretty much where I was at, and everyone got to know me off the forums. Yep. So that's really how I built my name, and that's why you'll see to a bunch of the people that know me from 10 years ago, they all know my forum handle.
Yeah.
So
yeah. What is your forum handle again?
Datas 4, DATAS 4, and that's in my email, and it's a lot of people still know what it is.
Yeah, because it even comes up here when we're talking on Skype. When I record the podcast, it will save it as chat with Datas 4, and I'm like, that's his handle. So like, it's just you get to be known that, right? And as funny as it is, and I won't tell the origin story of that. Well, that's for a whole other time. But where Mega Marty came from, like. Funny enough, that's I hear like, oh, is that are you Mega Marty? And like, just as a joke, as whatever it started out as, like, you can't get rid of that stuff, right? And not only would you necessarily want to, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want to get rid of Datas 4, because like I can see it as like Dat and then Austin Stout 4. That's what it looks like to me, or whatever. But like, just it's cool, man, to see like that. I won't call it a legacy. I won't pump your tires too much here. All of a sudden, you'll start crying and blushing on the other end of the call here, but like, it's cool to see that stuff sticks around and that you have a decent name. You know what I mean? It's awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool. It makes you reminisce a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Like, you remember being on Intense Muscle Mayhem, like all these, like even bodybuilding.com to a degree. I think I signed up as Marty MacPhee in 2002, maybe 2003 on bodybuilding.com, back when like it was. I'm not trying to be one of those. I was in there at the beginning, because I definitely wasn't. But just Eric Helms was posting a lot. Like guys like just every like there was pros on there. There was great people on there. Justin Harris was on there. Ken Hill was on there. Dr. Scott Stevenson was on there. Dante Trudell was on there, and that was like the time of my life. I was like looking up to so many of these guys and being able to answer the questions. Whatever. Yeah, just like there you go. I'm already being nostalgic on our damn podcast, but holy crow, let's get moving along here.
All right, we will. We'll move on to the next one. Next question is business goals, events, or just things coming up that may change, improve, advance for your business.
Yeah, for 2019 here, for sure. We kind of talked, not briefly, I'd say extensively about that before the podcast here, but I'm looking into hiring someone to help me be able to manage the stuff that I don't need to manage, in terms of either how I contact people, being able to do images for social media, just things like that I don't, not only am I not good at, but I don't know how to do, so that I can focus more on coaching, because I still love this stuff. Here it is. As of next month, it'll be 11 years of being a trainer/coach. And I'm going to be focusing more on being able to deliver even more to not only my clients, but then to, we'll say, the masses that still want to know more about this stuff, like you, myself, and our good buddy Joe Jeffrey might have something coming out here new. That's stay tuned for that. Also, just looking into doing more of this stuff, more podcasts, more audio. I really, really love audio. It's because, I just get to put on the headphones and hear me and you talk, and just get serenaded to sleep. Serenaded to sleep. Woo, that's the wrong thing to say. Serenaded to excitement. There you go. And just, I think that I can deliver more that way, and then hopefully try to do like a couple speaking events or something like that. So just refine my process, be able to coach more. And try to get to an event. I potentially might be getting to an event here by the Arnold Classic there, that be able to finally meet up with your handsome ass and, get a couple pics of me putting the peace sign over top of your head and you being 3 times my size. So we'll see that. Yeah, man.
Oh, gosh. Well,
you got it.
I'm in a pretty similar, I think we're in a pretty similar situation. We're both, in terms of clients, we both kind of float towards that upper end. We're not like actively seeking 20 clients or anything.
Right.
We're both pretty full and established. And it's just kind of at this point, just trying to better the craft and instead of, like you talked about and we've talked about, trying to figure out how we can just do a little bit more without simply adding more time to our schedules. And there's things that I definitely want to do and things that I slowly want to transition to, like the speaking and stuff. Really enjoying doing speaking, have some speaking opportunities coming up. And I could definitely see, probably not in 2019 necessarily, but I could definitely see in the next, I don't know, 3 to 5 years that I would have less clients and doing more speaking.
Right.
And that's kind of where I'm heading. I would never stop coaching. I don't think I would ever want to, even if I spoke all the time. I just love, because even if I could speak to people, that's not the down in the nitty gritty, like coaching is. So, but if I dropped 10 clients or something like that in the next 3 to 5 years and took on some more speaking, I wouldn't be too hurt.
Yeah.
But specific things this year. I mean, if you guys are interested in speaking, I'll plug a couple things. We have that, which we did announce on OPD. I don't know if you listened to it on the last OPD. We did have John Gorman on, the guy that runs the Physique Summit, the conference. And I didn't say anything. He spilled the beans that I'll be there to talk. So
what an effing asshole, right? Like, wow. How dare he promote you or say something exciting, right?
Yeah. So we'll be at the Physique Summit this year here in the U.S., St. Louis,
awesome.
talking on the Q&A panel.
What's the date of that, Austin? Sorry.
He's going to have more details coming out. Like, they'll have the website updated and stuff, but I believe it's October 12th and 13th.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure. So there's a little while before that happens, but have a couple other seminars coming up over here in this area, potentially, at my house, at my home barn gym,
the barn gym limited, coming soon for sure.
And then potentially another one coming up a little south of Ohio, here in Tennessee, working on some details of that one. And I'm just going to keep speaking as many opportunities as I can get and keep building on that. And that'll be it. That's pretty much my goal at this point.
And then I don't want to, we can edit this out, which we won't. I'll leave it in there anyways. But do you want to look into doing a little bit more potentially of the mentorship for the clients? Because, we've talked about that and you have a couple of those clients. Like, is that something you potentially want to explore, or?
Yeah. That's that's the educate. I should have just said the education piece. I think that's where I've slowly transitioned a little bit of my time to, is the education piece. I haven't promoted the mentorship a lot, like directly on social media or anything, just a little bit, some subtle things. But I haven't really needed to. I mean, I've gotten some inquiries and stuff for that. So it may be something that I promote a little bit more heavily. And I'm slowly refining my process too, like how to present the information and do that, because I mean, it is time consuming, especially when I'm doing things like for example, typing out documents and stuff for people in like a lesson plan. I mean, if you're doing that for even 5 people, that's a lot. So yeah, I think just refining that process and stuff, and I'll continue to figure out how I can be more efficient at it.
No, I love that, man. Like I said, your Q&As are dynamite. Being able to refine that and deliver that one-on-one to people, like along with the not one-on-one, such as the seminars or whatever. I think that's not only a great angle for you, but like you're great at connecting with people and being able to not just say here's an idea, but here is how to do it and what to do it. So yeah, I'm pumped for your we'll say 2019 in that regard. Absolutely.
Well, it's mutual. We're gonna should be a good.
Oh, I knew it. Okay.
Okay, so next question. What are your personal goals for the near future? I'm not going to say 2019 necessarily, but
Sure.
for the near future. And that can just be an extension of the last question.
Yeah, man, for sure. So for like personally, for we'll say Marty himself, like what I want to do, I want to travel. I've been talking and humming and hawing about traveling for, holy crow, I want to say 5 years, if not more. I was in that town that I mentioned, Red Deer, for way too long. I talked about not only moving to a place called Kelowna that's in British Columbia here, I talked about moving to the UK for a bit, just to kind of do like a work visa, and then I talked about moving to Calgary, where I ended up finally now. I've moved here in August of 2018, and I'm really happy I did. Like, even recording this podcast, my view is awesome. I'm looking at the mountains here, I see skyscrapers, just motivating and stuff, and that's not traveling, that's just moving. So I want to get out and do more for myself, because I not only did I spend an ungodly amount of time building up, we'll say, the business and the coaching and whatever, as I'm sure you know, it's not only all consuming, but it's very exhausting and leaves you with not a lot of time for you. So I want to do that more. I want to take more time, not only for me, but then be able to not get burnt out, kind of have some things that will fulfill me more, that's a little bit outside of my career. And so, yeah, traveling, I would love to check, like, and this is not necessarily, like you said, going to happen in 2019, but I would love to check out Europe. I would love to check out Rome, Greece, Spain. My mom and dad are going to Spain this year. Like, I was like, geez, that sounds awesome. So definitely travel. And then personally is that I am going to be looking into doing some more photo shoots for myself, because I kind of hung up my hat for being competitive myself in terms of being on stage in 2013, I think was my last show, and then just got more heavily involved in coaching and liking that angle, as opposed to trying to diet myself and put myself, because we're in a weird position here in Canada where we have about kind of 3 different show seasons, and up until 2 or 3 years ago, there was only, so yes, this 2019 will be the 3rd show in we'll say spring here. We only have, we'll call them the March shows, then the June shows, and then the October shows, and that's it. So if I was to pick a show to be in, I would have to be in this show that I would have 5 to 10 clients in. And I just felt that, and this happened to me in 2013, was that I didn't feel I was able to give my clients everything possible, because I was A, in the show myself, B, I was half brain dead just due to exhaustion and everything else from there. So but yeah, so I'm going to try to pick a photo shoot here with my good buddy Brian Cron. We're going to take a look and doing some stuff like that. So there's some personal fitness goals, we'll say, because if you're going to be, I'm sure you can say this too, if you're going to be telling people what to do for fitness and for nutrition, you better damn well be doing it yourself, or trying to learn or experiment more. And so here I am doing that. And then just want to keep up with reading more. I use the Audible app by Amazon. I read/listen to books all the time. And then just, yeah, get out more and be more damn social with my friends. Since moving to Calgary here, I have about 3 or 4 good friends. I got my buddy Brian I just mentioned there. Brian, don't let your ego get too big, please. My buddy Gabriel, my buddy Jay, and just being able to get out and being more social. Whereas in Red Deer, it was pretty much myself and maybe my buddy Brett, and that was about it for the longest time. So yeah, new year, new me, focusing on some personal stuff in that regard. For sure. And then, yeah, just exactly. And then that we already talked about the business stuff, but that's the personal stuff. So how about yourself? Personal goals for near future and beyond?
Okay. The traveling thing it's not something I used to be super interested in, but it's kind of something that my wife likes a lot. So it's grown on me.
Right.
And well, the cool thing about the speaking engagements is it's kind of integrates the two together.
Right.
And, and it's business, and, they say don't mix business with pleasure, but this is a case where you can, to some extent, like, for example, going to the summit this year, we planned on going early and checking out St. Louis. It's a big city, so we'll check out, see what it's all about. And I plan on, really, my goal with most of the speaking things or most of the shows that we go to that are distance, a little bit further, we really try to do that with all of them as ways to, like, little mini trips.
Right.
So that's something I plan to continue to do, but on a larger scale, more, especially as we're doing more of the speaking and stuff. I would like to be able to check out those areas and go a couple days early or so for each time we do that. So that's something we've been able to do. Something we've been able to do the last couple years, especially, and then more and more as time goes on. The more travel opportunities there are, the more we'll be able to do it. My wife has I actually got her this big map that has like the little pins on it, like sewing pins and pin cushions, and she sticks it in each place that we've been.
I love that. That's awesome.
So we're looking to fill up the maps. So anyone want a seminar in their country, state, let me know and we'll set it up.
Well, you know what? I will say very passively and softly that I do want to have something like that around here. And I would love to have you come here and BS about what you do and things like that. Like, cause I don't think not only in Alberta, period. My buddy Landon here has a fitness seminar type of thing every year, but there's not enough of that stuff. And but then you get to check out how cold it is here, and but yeah, like you said, it's kind of like a really great paid way to check out the world, we'll say, right? So yeah, man, I love that. Those are super good goals here for the future and beyond.
Yep, that's it. I don't think anything else really is changing a whole lot. Just get better. Just keep getting better. I do have personal bodybuilding thing. Will be this year. I plan to compete, and that'll probably be the last year for at least a few years because I'd like to work my way up to the next weight class, and that's just a big jump. So that'll take some time.
Both ladies and men that are listening to this, did you hear what he just said? He wants to improve, so he needs to take some time to grow. Doing a show every year is not how to grow optimally. That's all I'm going to say. There's your informative post that we usually give inside of the podcast, even on the AUDIObiography. I love it. I just came up with that. I'm trademarking this. I'm writing it down. AUDIObiography. There you go. From Marty's mouth, Austin. Here we go.
There it is. Yeah.
Okay. Dope.
Yeah, that's 100% true. I mean, it's like a freaking 20-pound jump. 20 plus pounds.
And to think you can do that in a year, let alone 18 months. Come on now.
Yeah, ridiculous. So that's my personal bodybuilding goals. I have a bigger show planned for this year that I haven't really announced yet, but it's a little bigger scale. So that's what we're doing moving forward.
Love it.
Cool. Okay. Number 4, at what point did you realize that this was a viable career?
Awesome. I don't think I've ever been asked this, but I would say when I was personal training at 2009, I would probably say so. I started doing the personal training in February, and it would be around a year in, I realized that how I did the transition too was I was still full time at the supplement shop from 9 to 5, and I went up to the gym to personal train from about, let's say, 6 to 9. And then about 3 to 5 months into that, I transitioned to just opening the shop from about 9 to noon, 12, and then was personal training from about 1 to 9 at the gym. And then about another 3 or 4 months later from that, I was able to find someone to replace me, hired a gentleman named Landon, who ended up being the manager of the supplement shop, and so then was personal training full time. It was right around probably when I was able to do that. Rated to go full-time personal training, and saw that I could I was able to charge a bit more for my services, that I was getting, we'll say, pretty damn good at the personal training thing. And then so that would be part one of that question, would be that's when I realized it was a viable career, was personal training. Was then it wasn't just a thing that some people did, because funny enough, my older cousin Jillian was a personal trainer kind of as a summer job in between school, and it was kind of seen as that. I bet you it's still seen as that, as a personal trainer is like something that a young person does, in a sense, we'll say 25 and below. So no, and even then, and it was back then, it bruised the living shit out of my ego when people would say, "Oh, so you're a personal trainer? What else do you do? Or what else? What are you going to do afterwards? What are you going to do with your life?" And I'm like, I got upset, and I was like, "What do you mean? What am I doing with my life? I'm doing this right now." And so, but then even kind of like silently smiling to myself and knowing that the income was there, the potential was there, And then I needed to be able to not only scale my time, but keep the enjoyment going. And so then when I had the couple ladies approach me and my buddy Chad there about doing the bodybuilding shows, then looking into more of doing the online stuff, because I forgot to mention that at that time, putting out even Kijiji ads, doing a little bit of Facebook stuff, just posting on Facebook, putting out blogs, then like attract a little bit of attention online due to people being in different cities in the shows and be like, oh, hey, can I coach with you still? Or just even saying, hey, I can coach online, because it was so damn brand new at that time. And then once I slowly was getting more clients, I went up to like about 10 or 20 clients by doing kind of that method and going, whoa, I had to slow down on my personal training around that 2011, 2012 mark, and be just exactly like doing the supplement shop thing, being able to transition from full-time personal trainer to part-time to, I think my last couple of years, I only had maybe 4 or 5 full-time clients, because not only do I enjoy them, and I know of at least the 3 off the top of my head that I'm picking is Hi Ashton, Hi Lee, and Hi Jesse, because they were with me for not only years, but like I would come in and train them, and then eventually how it kind of jammed out was the gym went under. There's a gym chain called Good Life in Canada here, and they put a massive 75,000 square foot gym in that 100,000 person town I was in, named called Red Deer, and I think 3 or 4 gyms closed down. Just poof, they went. So that was kind of my kick in the ass too, because I was talking about being only online, solely online, and there it was. So it was either become a employee of Good Life. I'll mention too that I've never worked for anybody other than myself. I was always a kind of a subcontractor, so it was always just me. And so it was, either become a trainer at Good Life for these 3 people that I didn't really want to be doing anymore, because personal training wasn't fulfilling me to the extent that the online coaching was. But then, so right probably around that, when I was able to slowly transition out of the personal training, I was like, I think there's a career here and all of that. But then just seeing like my buddy Jack Wheeler, who has a couple of gym chains here, he was diving into the business coaching end of things. And he's like, man, you have like a product here. Like, do you like the potential is there? So you could do not only just this, but you don't need to personal train anymore. You can be an online coach. It's like, whoa, really? He's like, yeah, man, you have people placing first. You have people winning overalls. Do you enjoy this? I said, heck yeah, I enjoy this. So yeah, I would say right around that transition time. That's the 3rd time I'm repeating myself now, and I'll let you be able to talk, because that's what I do. Cut me off, Austin, when I talk too damn much. We're both ramblers, and it's friggin' terrible, right? So, but yeah, that's when I realized it was a viable career. So yourself, what point did you realize that either just personal training or online coaching was going to be a viable career, and that you could do this, we'll say, potentially forever?
It's kind of similar to yours in that I was always self-employed. Like, I was subcontracted for personal training. I was subcontracted in the small little startup coaching businesses and all that. So I think in the back of my head, I thought I would be self-employed always, but I wasn't really sure where it was going to lead. I just knew that not that I like to be my own boss, but I just knew that I was a go-getter, and knew that I did better being in control of things and what have you. And so some people are great at working for other people. Other people just aren't. And
I'm one of those too, buddy. I feel you.
I'm sure I could probably work for the right person depending on the situation, but I just feel like I do much better. And frankly, some people aren't willing to take the risks and have that fear of working for themselves. So it is very scary at times, and there's a lot of doubt. And that was, I talked about that in the other question. That was the biggest thing, is there was just a lot of doubt and fear, but I use that to fuel me. And that's what I try to tell people too, is that if you can do one of 2 things with your fear, like especially if you're self-employed, or if you're afraid to do any, reach any goal, is that you can either let it scare you away, or you can let it motivate you. So that's really the only 2 things you could do. And I decided I was going to let it motivate me, because I didn't want to fail. I had little failures along the way, little things that didn't work, but I've improved on them and kept going. So I think it's probably around, I don't know. I would say within the last 5 years, I was like, this is really it. This is about halfway into where my, 10-ish years so far. I would say this is, I have this on lock. I think there was still little times where I doubted it. But I think it was more of a product of me just being really hard on myself more than anything. I've had everyone tells me that. They said you're way too hard on yourself, and I'm well, yeah, yes, I agree, but at the same time, you can't get complacent either.
Right.
I feel like, and you and I have both seen it, even within this industry, I feel like there's some people that were really good coaches that they became successful and they did get very complacent, and it shows in the quality of their work now.
Yes. I'll slightly cut you off there and say, not only would they, I'd say they'd be complacent, but they start seeing the dollar sign, and they start seeing that they can either that the money's coming in, that they don't need to put the effort in, so that would almost, I won't say create the complacency, but like that they just feel that they don't need to keep becoming better as a person, or that they, all of a sudden that I'm unsure or whatever is gone because of the money. So like, is that also what kind of the angle you're talking about too?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's easy to get caught up in that. I mean, it's the same reason that I don't have 200 clients. It's like, well, I could just take more and let my quality suffer. But the thing is, I have a big moral conscience, and I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. That's the big one. And I'm just not wired. Some people are just wired like that. I feel like they just don't care. And other people, like, I can't do that. I wouldn't be good. Like, I wouldn't be good at being a salesman,
Oh,
so
tell me about it. So here, let's offer even a little bit more, we'll say value after that kind of there is. So I met a gentleman, it'll be a year ago here in a tiny bit. It's January 10th as we're recording this, named Mike Dola. Hi, Mike. He owns a company called Stronger You, and they're exploding. I don't want to give his origin story because this is ours here. But anyways, I was talking to him about that last year. I said, what's your superpower? And he said, man, customer service. And that was it. Like, just caring about the clients. And funny enough, I made a post about that a little bit earlier here today about it. But that's the key, and that's the secret, is that everything else, especially if you have the tenacity to outsource some things, get a little bit more, we'll say, business advice, not necessarily marketing advice, but whatever. But you will stick around if you care about people and you're good at it. You have talent in it, in terms just like yourself does, or you do. Then you will stick around. But if you either A, don't care about the clients, or B, care about the money more, I don't think that they're going to last, man. And hopefully, like we even talked about this before the podcast, hopefully the people catch on to that. We kind of said, I don't see how these people can see this or whatever, especially if their name was not good to begin with and you just see like a flash in the pan marketing system or whatever. But yeah, if I completely agree with you, is that you have to have that care there. And like you said, you'll never stop coaching like that. I picked up on that big time because someone said like, oh, what's your retirement plan? And all this stuff. I was like, coaching. Like, I will be 55, 60, 65 still, because I enjoy the living heck out of this stuff. Like, one of the inspirations and mentors and coaches I've had is Scott Abel. I believe he's 56, 57, 58, and dude is still not only banging out great content, but he's learning more, and he still really freaking cares about what he does. And I'm like, that's going to be me, man. And a funny quote I had from him when I saw him in person, which was life-changing. He was in that place, Kelowna, that I was talking to you about there in British Columbia. I said, man, I want to be like you. And he said, he kind of chuckled, and he said, nah, be a better me. And I was like, whoa, okay, I'll do that then. And so, that's just it. Like, well, why not, right? I not only have the aspirations to be better, but to just take care of people and to educate correctly more, man. That'll kind of guide people like yourself and myself. Yeah,
100%. We'll be here. We're sticking around. We're not going anywhere. That's because we planted the roots of the seeds and everything's rooted, and you're not. And on that note too, I mean, it's just like, even if you are slimy and you make it up higher, like, I just can't be bothered with having to, like, people screenshotting stupid shit that I do and, and worrying about all that. It's just, man, couldn't live like that, know?
No, I agree with you. And like, even when you said too about being like the salesman, like, it was to go back to when I was a supplement salesman. I was able to sell the product I believed in like no one's business, solely from talking about the product. And so just like your services too, you don't need to be a salesman to, we'll say, sell yourself, especially if you believe in your product in terms of your coaching, whatever. That's it. We'll call it an easy sale, because you, like, as we talked about in not only the marketing podcast, but that's not being slimy. That's because you believe in yourself. So that's easy to to sell. Not that you have to overtalk yourself or pump your own tires, but just say like, here's my resume, let's do this type of thing, right?
Yep, 100%. Let's
my man.
Okay. Number 5. Okay. Oh, this will be a fun one. What are your interests outside of the industry?
Ooh, this is where, we talked about the shipping mishap. I'll just leave that there so we can over Christmas with the Marty's real interest or whatever. So anyway, sorry, inside joke on the audio cast here because, why not? But so my interests outside of this industry, I have 3 passions, I would call them, or severe interests. And number 1, and this trumps fitness, funny enough as it is music. I have been so addicted and enslaved by music from such a damn young age that it will never go away. So not only did I learn guitar when I was younger, my mom would always sing with me, and we would sing, even going like way back, even just silly stuff like singing in church, just learning how to sing, being interested in it. Playing guitar, and then being in a couple various bands, performing live. I was in a band in university that started out being named Better Than You, then Best of Luck, and then Bombay, just because that's what everyone does. They change the name of their bands, right? But that was where I referred to them as some of the greatest times of my life because they were performing music and being interested in music. Like, I was one of those kids that when he grew up around, remember those, like, they had like a 200 stack of CDs or whatever that you could just put off the ground. They were these big wire towers or whatever. I had those completely surrounding my room full of music because that's just it. I would half of my paycheck would go towards music when I was working at the Sobeys Bakery, making $5.65 an hour Canadian, which is like $1.50 American. And I would blow all my money on music. CDs were not cheap back then. They were probably $25 to $30 Canadian. That wasn't like today where you could see them for $9.99 or $15 maximum. And then only that, but who buys CDs now? But yeah, man, I and at one point on my computer in university, I think I had 20 or 30,000 songs downloaded at one point. That's it. I've always been interested in not just necessarily a certain type of music, but just music, period. And that's even when I learned how to be a DJ there a little while ago, and I was performing as a DJ because I just needed something to do musically independently to keep going. I don't play guitar as much as I would like to, and that's why I didn't pursue it as a career, because I wasn't that friggin' good. So I still love it and still love music. So that would be the number 1 passion, and then number 2 is definitely fitness / I'll just leave it as fitness, and then number 3 is, funny enough, is fashion. If you've seen any posts about my hair over the years, I've had ridiculous hair. I've always tried to buy shoes. I at one point had 96 pairs of shoes and sneakers because that's what I did at one point when, I was a young man, 28, living by himself, and said, I want to have all these shoes, and bought them off of eBay. And so, not saying that my fashion is impeccable or great or better than anyone else's, but I just loved learning about it. I loved learning color combination, what tie goes with what. And then I was able to kind of bring that back at the bodybuilding shows, wearing different colored ties with different color suit jackets when I was emceeing the bodybuilding shows. I just think it's so much fun. But then my family too, I have a cousin, Rob, that said, you're like Charles Manson. I said, I'm like Charles Manson? What the hell are you talking? He said, because you have a different look every time I see you. Because you're trying to hide from the cops. Because I would always either have different colored hair. At one point I had dreadlocks when I was in my band in university. I've had black hair. I've had blonde hair. I've had multicolored hair. Just because none of that. But as I slowly start balding here at 33, I know that it's going to go away. So I'm like, why not have some fun with hair? But yeah, just fashion. Like I've had to stop going to malls and things like that because I did have quite a bit of an addiction at one point. Me and my buddy Gabriel will go to a shop here called Simmons or Simons. I don't even know how the frig it's pronounced. I didn't care because I was too busy buying clothing. Would just drop silly amounts on clothing because that was our interest. And yeah, so outside of this industry would definitely be music and would be fashion. And then a side order of, I used to be super into video games. Final Fantasy was always my thing. I played the very first one when I was young. Final Fantasy 7 is way better than Final Fantasy 8. Anyone wants to argue with me, come at me, bro. And then in a side order of I used to be a bit of a movie buff, but not really anymore. But yeah, those would definitely be my interests outside of the fitness industry. I'm trying to think if I've got kind of one more. I'm not a car guy. And definitely, straight up, flat out psychology. Sorry, that will be the other thing that I'm trying to learn more and more on is not only going to see counselors and therapists myself to learn from them, but being able to ask them questions, reading Psychology Today, reading, because it was my minor in university, and just being able to, because not only that ties so heavily into our industry as it is, so having that be an interest and passion, so it's not inside of our industry directly, but so much so that it's, I think anyone that's going to be a coach worth their salt is going to have to dive into some kind of psychology because, as I'm sure you're very aware, it's way more than just the macros. It goes way beyond the macros. And we'll go with those. We'll say psychology, fitness or fashion, and music. And how about yourself? What are your interests outside of fitness/bodybuilding?
See, I knew some of those, so that wasn't. I knew a little bit.
Atta boy, look at you doing your homework on me. Oh, God, you're making me blush here. Yeah.
Okay. So I post about my interests a little bit sometimes online. Like I'm a huge fan of wrestling on all levels, like collegiate, high school, international, like US team, world team, and things like that. Which I post about that stuff sometimes. And we go to, my wife and I and my dad, he's into it. We go to like collegiate Ohio State here. We have a really good wrestling program. The Ohio State University does. So we go to home meets and stuff. They're at the big convention center and things like that. And I always watch it online when I can. Pretty much follow the rankings. Like people have fantasy football and they like follow all that stuff. Like I know everything about wrestling. So that's kind of my jam. I wrestled all through school. Think I was pretty good at it considering I was not athletic at all. I was like tripped over my own 2 feet and I was fat. So I was worked really hard and, got pretty good at it by the end. And then it just carried over. I just have it's one of those things where it's like bodybuilding. Mentally, it's a very tough sport. And there are a lot of sacrifices in it, kind of like bodybuilding, compared to a lot of other sports. And it's an individual thing. You know what I mean? So you don't have a team. It's very much you versus you or you versus the other guy. And it's very mentally taxing. So I appreciate it and I still follow it. Also, motocross. I don't know. Is that big in Canada?
You know what? From where I was in Nova Scotia, it was pretty damn big because there wasn't a lot else that you could possibly do there in a sense of there wasn't a lot of shopping to do. Of course, I'm using my interest, right? But we didn't have a lot of concerts, whatever. But so four-wheeling or quadding was huge along with motocross for sure. There's even a dude that was from Nova Scotia, I think Machine Gun Mitchell Cook or something like that. He got pretty famous around Canada anyways for it. But yes, I will say motocross was big. You were into that, eh? That was your thing?
Well, I started racing when I was 8 years old, and I still ride occasionally. Not really race anymore. But yeah, I raced clear up to national level. Pretty big events every single weekend. I never missed school or anything, but my dad was waiting for me right after school with the trailer and the bikes ready to go, and we would go all weekend.
Yeah.
And race. And I would just do it. That's what we did all the time. Lots of injuries, definitely a lot of injuries. But again, another interesting, very competitive, aggressive sport. A lot of very high adrenaline, very taxing. So I'm still into that. So we'll go to we normally try to go to one pro event each year. Like here, Detroit, Michigan has one. Indianapolis, Indiana, they have another Supercross event. So they use the big dome stadiums where they play football, and so they do those during the winter. That's when the Supercross races, they do them in the winter, and then the motocross was that's actual outdoor, during the summer. So
can you explain really quickly the difference between Supercross and motocross? Because I don't friggin' know.
It's not any different. It's the same people. It's just one's indoor and one's outdoor.
Oh, is that the difference? So Supercross is inside?
Yeah. So it's, for example, most of the stadiums they race in, unless it's like California where it's warm, they're the dome stadiums that are closed in the top, that have a roof on them.
Yeah, just like when it rains for a baseball game or whatever, they can close it so it doesn't get screwed. Got it. Cool.
Yeah, so that's it. The tracks, the indoor tracks are much more compact, and the jumps are usually bigger and tighter. It's more of like it's very technical.
Got it.
Technical track to race on, and the outdoor tracks are much more like natural terrain, and they get a lot of elevation change, and they put them on the side of a hill or something in the middle of nowhere. So
yeah.
But those are my two. I would say those are my two main interests. I follow them, and they just like motocross is year round. Wrestling is also like the international is. I follow those pretty religiously. I could pretty much tell you everything that was going on. We just went to a college wrestling meet the other day, and we have two more. We have tickets to two more for the year. So
now,
yeah,
having said that, were you ever interested in pro wrestling, as in like the WWF/WWE?
Not really. No, I never got into it. I know some people that are like, they like it and they like the entertainment value. Now there are a few guys that wrestle in WWE that were actual, wrestlers. Like like Kurt Angle, he was an Olympic gold medalist.
Was he really? Because I remember Kurt for sure. That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yes, I will say I do like the UFC some too, like the MMA, but mainly because I like watching guys that were wrestlers that transitioned.
Yes.
So, there's a lot of guys.
A lot of guys that used to do that kind of crossover, whatever, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, like they'll do Olympics and stuff, and then they cross over into MMA where all the money's at, of course.
Well, frig, I remember even watching Brock Lesnar. That was one of the biggest examples. That, like, just not being a fanboy like yourself, but like just watching him go from the WWE, I believe, or wherever he was, into that was huge. Like, and he was a monster there for a bit, right? Like, I remember watching some of his training videos, and he would have like 2 or 3 guys come at him one after each other. Like, that guy, he might have been what we'll say, quote unquote, out of shape in a sense of he wasn't ripped like The Rock was or Ultimate Warrior was or anything like that. But dude was a machine in terms of cardio and performance for a big fella. Like, I loved watching him. It was, to me, between him and then back in the day GSP, those were the two most exciting events. And I'm not a UFC guy, but I was pumped watching Brock fight.
Yeah, if you looked like statistically across the board, I would say most of the top guys that are really at the very top have a pretty extensive wrestling background. Like, there's very few that don't.
Right.
GSP did. He's Canadian though.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, what does that mean, man? What does that mean? He's just Canadian. I see what's going on here.
Is Canadian? I would have thought wrestling would be big in Canada, but it's not. Really.
It isn't at all. They didn't have it at my high school. I have one buddy named Eric from New Brunswick that was really, really good at it, but there was no competition, he said. So it's not even like how people like even like doing wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling, like we didn't have it. There wasn't it at all in Nova Scotia. Like, that's of course a little tiny blip of a province here in Canada, but not even close to what you guys have.
Yeah, that's strange because normally the colder climates there, like Russia is like that's their national sport.
Oh, is it? Okay. Dope.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like their prime minister, Putin, he goes to all the damn wrestling meets.
No way. Yeah, that's awesome.
Where it's football here, but it's wrestling there.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And so funny enough, you mentioned that football was monstrous in my hometown growing up. Like, I played football from, I think, grade 4 to grade 12, like straight up. I missed being captain of the football team by kind of, we'll say, 1 point. There was a gentleman named Connor that was a little bit better than me, but I was an all-star. And what all-star means is if they were to pick the dream team from Nova Scotia, they picked kind of the one person for each position, both offense and defense. And so I was the first team all-star for Nova Scotia for football, because that was my transition into weights. Was I had to get stronger. And I remember so vividly my coach going, because I started lifting weights when I was, I think, going from grade 11 to grade 12 or grade 10 to grade 11, either way. My high school was 10, 11, 12. So after the first year, I was about 150 pounds at 6 foot, almost 1, and was an offensive center. And if you think about it, that's not what an offensive center looks like at all. And so I remember I got a magazine for Christmas. It was straight up men's fitness or muscle and fitness, one of the two. And it had like all this arm stuff and whatever. And so me and my buddy Steve, who was just one of those, looks like a farm boy that just was one of those dudes that was naturally lean and genetically jacked in high school. He was a first team All-Star for middle linebacker. And so me and him started working out together, and I went from 150 to about 190 of both fat and muscle. And I so vividly remember my coach saying, "Oh, MacPhee got strong." And my buddy said, "Don't you mean stronger?" And he said, No. He was never strong before. And just straight up. And I was like, oh. And so then when football ended, like I was kind of approached by, I think, 2 universities or in Nova Scotia in the Maritimes saying like, hey, you're great, you're technical, you know how to block, you know how to do this, you can read the play, but you need to gain 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds to do your position. And I was like, I think I'm a little bit more interested in girls than gaining about 80 pounds of fat and muscle here. And that would have been, like, at the time too, I was 17, 18. I was like, and so it was a lot of effort that I just wasn't into at the time. I'll flat out say it, right? So, but yeah, man, like where I was going with that entirely was that football is monstrous here. Like, you ever remember that movie Varsity Blues from way back in the day?
Yeah, for sure.
Like that was Nova Scotia, man. Like in my little small town called Truro, there might have been an entirety, if you added up all the outside areas around it, when might have been 10 to 12,000. Where I was from was, like we said before the show here, about 4,000 people, but my high school had 2,000 people that went to from grades 10, 11, 12, and that's probably, I will say, average maybe where you're from or whatever. But the other high schools had maybe 300 or 400 people, and that's in like Halifax, which is the the capital of Nova Scotia, which had 250,000 people in that town. They only had 300 or 400 per school. We had 2,000, so we had all these to kind of draw from or whatever. But Sunday literally replaced church for football. Football games were every Sunday at 1 p.m. and I had to be there. I was on special teams because I was the center. I was the hiker / hutter / long snapper, and we had to go there for special teams around 10 or 11 in the morning. I forget now, but like where I was going with that is that people showed up. Like the bleachers were full. People loved football. Like they got there. Like the cheering was awesome. Full on. Like it was awesome. But now, like you said, like wrestling, and that was nothing. But now football, and even funny enough, like you said, colder climates, we still played it outside. We were playing, but we are kind of what's the joke is that we're baptized in the Atlantic Ocean here, so like we don't feel cold quite like other people. So we're out there in November, snow on the ground, playing football, whereas everyone else is kind of inside their houses with their heaters. But yeah, man, it was football was awesome. I loved it. Did you ever play football?
I did up until junior high, and then wrestling took over. And it's one of those sports where to be really good at it, you pretty much have to do like camps in the summer and all that stuff. So I was just doing it all year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna. I was just funny enough. I was typing you here, but like, let's go with this. We'll do one more question here, and what we'll do is I'll actually ask you this one first because I just wouldn't shut up about my nostalgia football career there. What's that?
That's good. Sounds good.
Okay, we'll do where did you learn about your craft? Like, where did you learn how to be a coach? Where did you learn nutrition? Where did you learn training? And how? Was it formal education? Was it not so formal education? Because I feel this question is so wildly varying in terms of, and I'll share my thoughts and opinions and show you after this, just in terms of, do you need that formal education and everything else? So yeah, where did you learn how to do what you do and how?
All right. So I mentioned the schooling, the formal schooling already. I would say that probably makes up for, I don't know, 5% of my knowledge, maybe.
Yeah.
If I'm
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
That's probably being nice too. It's probably less than that, maybe. I don't know. I would say, I had various certifications, especially when I was a trainer.
Which ones did you have?
So here I had I want to say had the ISSA, had the was it NASM?
Yep, NASM is one. Yep, North American Sports and something. Yep.
Yeah, there was a couple various ones, and I've done a couple little courses on like alternative medicines and things like that to learn more about health and all that jazz. But most of it's self-taught. And to be honest, I attribute a lot of my problem solving skills, because I think that's what a lot of coaching is. It's just,
of course it is. Troubleshooting, problem solving. Yep, you got it.
Yeah, is from my own mishaps. Yeah, really. It's and I mentioned that before. I mentioned on other podcasts too. It's like I've not only messed myself up, completely my fault, self-induced, but I've also had just some unfortunate things that I couldn't really prevent. Sure. And that forced me to learn how to work around things and how to solve problems. And then slowly but surely over the years, I've kind of developed that niche where I'm the problem solving guy, and I get a lot of questions, and to be honest, like sometimes I get questions every once in a while, and I have a good idea of what the answer is, but I'm not fully aware, I'm not fully sure of it. So research it. So every time I get one of those questions, I learn something. I'm always learning something. And that's the way my coaching style is and stuff, so it's, I think a lot of that's where a lot of the education came from, is just, problem solving and researching topics. Like I get the questions sometimes, especially from like the mentor clients or just various people, like, hey, what book should I read about bodybuilding, or, what, magazine or what video DVD, like, well, there's nothing out there that's going to teach you everything. Nothing.
No, of course.
So I would say that I picked my knowledge from hundreds, probably thousands of different sources, to be honest.
If you were to give us, like, we'll say 5, not necessarily 5 sources, but like, was there a certain websites, was there certain textbooks or books period that kind of shaped your views or whatever? Like, so my question is, as a follow-up, what would you recommend to an aspiring coach, personal trainer, nutritionist, what are the Bibles, or what would you say, here's where to go learn, research now?
Now it's going to be a little bit different, but I would say I definitely learned a lot from the forums, so that was for me personally. But anymore these days, oh man, there's groups, there's some good groups on Facebook and stuff. And of course, I think two things you can do that are really going to help you is, one, work with coaches or a coach. That's like, I think that's probably one of the best things you can do. And that's going to teach you a lot about yourself, obviously, but you can also pick up on cues, like, the coach is changing this in this situation. And if you're intuitive, like, you're going to figure those things out. And then I would say second would be, well, experience. If you're already coaching people, obviously just more experience helps. But mentorship, man, I know I'm like not trying to plug myself or anyone else, but I think that it's a competitive field right now, and there's a lot of smart people.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like you really need to get that edge, and especially if you want to stick around long term, I feel like something like mentorship is worth its weight in gold if you can learn, because you can learn. Truthfully, my goal, at least with my mentorships, is I tell the guys, I'm like, hey, if they worked with me for a year or whatever for a mentorship, it's like, you probably learned more in a year than I learned in 5. That's valuable.
Yeah.
That's super valuable. And I don't know how other coaches set up their mentorships and stuff too, but I know mine personally, I get a lot of people that ask me, well, not only we do the lessons and stuff, but they ask me a lot of questions about their own clients.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that in and of itself is, there's no way to put a value on that. That's super valuable.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, I feel like is probably the best way to learn. You need to learn from somebody that you trust, and you need to also realize that you're going to hear a lot of different things, and I feel like you need to develop your own thoughts and processes, but be open-minded. I feel like
critical thinking, right? Like, be able to take a look at something and not just take it as solid evidence, but being able to look at it and try it out and look at it. Yeah.
So I'll ask you the same. So where did you find the majority of your education?
You know what? So going all the way back to the magazines, like, and I'm not saying that they were great or terrible, but at least sparked my interest into being able to not only try them out. Like, I go back to that first Muscle and Fitness magazine my mom got me for Christmas. I remember it was like talking about supersets for arms. I never heard of supersets back at that time, and so tried it out, see if I liked it, type of thing. So lots of trial and error, like you said, mistakes. But now, of course, I'm going to say that I don't believe that you can just do trial and error on yourself, and now that's how you should coach everybody. And I know you weren't saying that either. I'm just going to make that pretty clear, is that, like, because obviously people respond to different things better than, let's say, ourselves. But yeah, so not only doing it myself, but then I went so heavy into textbooks, into research books. This was internet was not that powerful back in my university days, so I had a lot of textbooks. The first book I ever bought on nutrition was called Power Eating by Susan Kleiner. And funny enough, I have her on Facebook now. I think she's on her 3rd or 4th edition of the book. No idea how good it is now, but it taught me the fundamentals. It taught me what a carb does, what a fat does, about ATP, about the Krebs cycle, everything else. So that started really solidifying my foundation in terms of nutrition and what kind of goes on. And then the training book I refer to as the Bible, I know there's lots of controversy around this one, was Starting Strength by Mark Riptow. Have you heard of that one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he has all kinds of videos on YouTube.
Absolutely. So he put out, I have the first edition. I can, hold on, let me see. Yep, there it is on my bookshelf here right beside me. I have the first edition of it, and it looks kind of like a beat-up book that you would find in someone's basement, because I've read it so much. There's coffee stains on it, and I don't even drink coffee, so that's how much it was on my table when people were over or whatever. I think that actually the first edition is worth quite a bit of money now, just because it's they're on the 3rd or 4th edition now, but that taught me the 5 big lifts in Mark's eyes, in terms of the squat, the bench press, the deadlift, and the power clean. I think he has the bent over row in there too, and then subsequent editions has like dips and other things like that, shoulder press. But yeah, so then there, and then buying Lyle McDonald's books. The Ketogenic Diet was one of the first really in-depth science-y books that I ever read, and I not only liked his writing style, but like that was my nerding out side of things. Like there's kind of a couple different types of nerds in the world. There's like the comic book nerds, the video game nerds, and then there's the sciencey nerds, and that was I think all 3 of them were kind of me at one point and still are. I don't think I'll ever be able to shake that fully, but yeah, just buying, like, even looking at my bookshelf here, there's got to be, like, I've got Super Training by Mel Siff, which is, I still haven't made it all the way through. Funny enough, Eric Helms at a seminar I saw said, how many people have heard of or read Super Training? I raised my hand. He said, how many people have read it all the way to the end without dying and of boredom? And I raised my hand too, because it's so freaking thick that how like, you know, God love Mel or whatever, the book is a Bible, but my God, does it ever put you to sleep? It's not interesting reads. Then even going all the way back to the Poliquin Principles, I had that PDF, learned from there. But in terms of straight up formal education, my chemistry degree did not really help me out with nutrition or anything by any stretch. It gave me the ability to take a look at like chemical structures such as like C3H2, whatever. But then the psychology minor definitely did. There was one called Drugs and Behavior that was really interesting as a course. I also had how to read research reviews correctly, learning APA format, the American Psychological Association format. But then the only other, we'll say formal, and I'm using air quotes, formal education was I took Dave Palumbo's Smart Trainer. Have you heard of that certification?
Yeah, so he has the SMART course, right? Something like that. So
way back in 2009, maybe, he had the first edition of Smart Trainer, 2009. And it was like $150, maybe even $100, and it was like a click Q&A. Very easy, I would say. I don't want to say I didn't learn anything from it, but it was extremely easy. And so that was how I got my quote-unquote personal training certification, to be able to legally do it here in Canada, and then was able to become insured. So I took that, and I also went to the class for something called the AFL-CA, which stood for the Alberta Fitness and Leadership Certification Association, because we didn't have any of the in-person stuff that you guys would have, like NASM, the CSCS, The ISSA we had, but it wasn't recognized by a lot of places in Canada. The big one here was called the CanFit Pro, which was Canadian Fitness Professionals. I will still flat out say that I really don't care for it that much. All certifications in my fairly firm, it was very firm, but I don't know if there's anything good out there now in terms of training. They weren't teaching you how to coach or teaching you how to train. They were giving you you learned shoulder abduction and knee flexion, and okay, cool. Now you can fancy other people with those terms, but whatever. So I took this AFLCA course in person. The one weekend was called resistance training. It was taught by a cross-country runner who I'm almost certain she had never lifted weights in her life, because we went to the gym portion. I know, right? Like, here I am being super negative about it, but we went to the gym portion on it, and she said, I want to know examples of compound movements. And I remember someone said bench press, someone said squat, and I raised my hand and said deadlift, and she said, no, that's an isolation exercise of the lower back. And I just put my hand down. I went to a frown. At the next break, I left. I said, nope, that's it. It was like to the end of the second day or whatever. I said, nope, that's enough. And so I never wrote the test, and whatever. But then they kind of left it there. Ended up getting that smart trainer, which was fine enough for me to be able to legally train people. So then precision nutrition, the very first class that ever came out when they offered it here, I took that for nutrition. It was half technical stuff, which I learned a lot from Lyle's stuff and whatever. It wasn't anything really new there, but then it was a lot of how to approach clients and everything else. So I thought then I was officially certified in nutrition, which was awesome. But then for flat out formal education, that was it. And we didn't have seminars. We didn't have access to the things that you guys have in the States or any other places. And the first one I ever went to was in 2016 here with Eric Helms, Alan Aragon, Brad... what the heck is his last name? The glute guy there. It's evading me right now, but that Brett Contreras. And then Mike T was supposed to come present as well, but he had personal commitments, so Eric gave another second chat. So that was the first seminar that I could ever possibly go to extend my education. So, but just like yourself, it was so much of the forms. It was so much of asking people. And then I would say the number one thing, and this is not a question we're asking, but what would Marty do if he had to redo it all over again, would be hire a coach/mentor sooner. You summed it up perfectly. They're worth their weight in gold. There's no way to be able to ask a textbook a question. And then having someone qualified to answer your questions is monstrous. So I would have started that sooner. I don't regret a single one of my coaches, good or bad, that I've had, or mentors, good or bad, because I've learned what is good, what is bad. I've learned from coaches what I liked and didn't like in terms of how they coached me. So going from there, and yeah, just again, experimentation, screwing up myself, but then yeah, almost entirely self-taught, which if anyone out there is listening and they think that they need to get their registered dietitian degree, or they need to take kinesiology, or they need to take any kind of exercise science, you don't have to. If you are someone that enjoys a classroom setting, absolutely. But I am one of the... as I'm growing older here, I'm one of the few people that can not only independently learn, but then put it into practice as well, in terms of go from being a textbook to the gym. So having both the lab coats knowledge, but also having the in the gym, in the trenches knowledge as well. So I think that's kind of the hybrid that people kind of need. But no, you don't need to take formal education to be not only successful in this career, but to understand kind of what's going on and what's happening. Yeah.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that
that's right.
It's becoming less and less essential. Yeah, I would say
that's exactly the term. I was going to say needed, but essential is way better. Yeah, man. Well, geez, I learned some stuff here. I didn't know about your formal education, so that's killer, man. I didn't know you did that stuff. And I enjoyed hearing too that like you were in a similar spot to me in many areas, especially financially. Just like when you're like you were scared, like yeah, man, like being scared. You like you said can either motivate you or break you, and it's done both to me at various points. But here we are. It's still so we ended up picking motivating in the end type of thing. But yeah, man, that was awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to fully disclose everything. It's not easy, you know. It's a hard
overnight success and everything else. It's overnight success. What is it? Overnight success has 10 years behind it that no one kind of sees. It's like when bands have this is their first album, when no, they've been touring and put out a couple albums that were crappy and just now they're finally being heard of. But yeah, for sure. Well, there you go. So there's cool. more about Austin and Marty. If you want to know about us, cool. If you hated this episode, don't tell us because our egos are way too fragile for that. So there was a little bit of a different podcast for you guys. We ran a little bit over time here because, we love talking about ourselves. Why not? But from Marty and Austin here at the Mind Body Broadcast, we will catch you next episode.